So we're going to talk about Doomsday Clock number 3. We've all been very excited for this issue to finally drop, and here it is. Unfortunately, the series is about to go bi-monthly, which is really bad for this.
Oh, I didn't know months came out like that. Good for them.
It's, you know.
Sean, you're just putting months on blast like that.
Oh my god. So it's about to go bi-monthly, which is really bad for a book like this because it's already a slow burn. And I don't think that I felt the slow burn more than I did here.
Yeah.
I really expected this to already be done. Like, you know, Gary Frank and Jeff Johns have been such a good team that I thought this would be the kind of a title that they would set aside and have them specifically working on so that they could take their time and get it right. Like, I guess I figured they had been working on this like 2 years ago.
See, I didn't get that impression, but I definitely agree with you that I thought that this book was going to take priority for them in a way where like we wouldn't see delays or anything like that. Seeing it go bi-monthly was really surprising for me and super disappointing. Because I agree with you, Sean, that I don't think that the way the story is being told is going to benefit from that space.
Yeah, so like the one thing I can say is that John said that they were working on it for a while before we saw anything. And that, I mean, this is the only thing that either one of them is working on. Aside from like the one...
Comic book wise.
Well, yeah, but aside from the one... Because Johns is the problem. Gary Frank is the problem as far as the delay is concerned. And he's only working on this. So Gary's style, and you can tell like in all of his other work, it's not always as detailed as it is here. Especially in terms of like how they're laying out the book in very specific ways with very specific paneling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I can imagine it takes a lot of time to put this kind of thing together. And I guess the lead-in time that they had wasn't enough, it's just crazy that, you know, it's going to slip into the bi-monthly. But let's talk about the book.
Sure.
So we kick off with the continuation from last issue where, you know, the comedian is back and he shot Lex Luthor, which is ridiculous. And it just kind of progresses.
That's a sentence that you're saying in real life. That's a thing that happened.
Yeah, it's weird. I guess we got an explanation. You know, Dr. Manhattan saved him. It seems like he like plucked him out of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the impression I got.
And that I figure like eventually he'll go back where he's supposed to be in some way, because obviously like we know that the comedian's body was found. So
I think it depends on what happens with the continuity here.
That's a good point, but I think Sean's probably right. I feel like we're going to see the other side of that scene again, that he'll blink back into the drop and we'll see him hit the ground and die. I don't know from what, but
it could be from something else, which is actually a really interesting thought.
Yeah.
I kind of got the, I think going back to what Sean said, I think in issue 1, with like the penny, the duality. So I kind of saw it as like that he's dead in one universe and like alive in another. Like that was kind of reading into it, but I got like a similar feeling of like two sides of it, of the same coin,
Sure.
like different. They're parallels in their styles, and like that's what they're trying to do is really separate one from the other, but still keep it connected by like tied through something.
There is a small line that I did want to bring up, and this is good a place as any. It says the line is something to the effect of the killed will be killer. Did you guys pick that up?
Oh,
I was wondering if that was one of those small, like Alan Moore-esque hints at what could be, you know, in the future. So that, I mean, the comedian is a logical line through if you take it that way.
I didn't put that together at the time, but now that you say that, that would make sense.
There are several sort of like little things like that, and there's another one that I'll bring up a little later. But I want to talk about the marionette and all that cool stuff that we got to see.
My God, those two are the best. Like,
yeah.
And I'm so happy that that's my opinion, that
Yeah.
like in a
Yeah.
story that's supposed to be a Watchmen sequel, that the characters I'm the most invested in are the two new ones.
As listeners might know, I'm not a big fan of superhero comics, but that was some comic shit I dug. That was cool, man.
Well, why'd you like it so much?
I think, well, like it's always like it's alluded to that he has invisible weapons, and then like seeing him whip them out, it's like you tease that out on me, and like you're pulling the triggers, like thank you. And all just like like what Sean was saying, the paneling was really good. The way they showed the motions, sort of took you through that spatially. It was really cool.
I think that was probably the strongest part of this issue for me, was the paneling. There was a couple times where just the page layout really blew me away. I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but while we're on the subject of that, my favorite scene was Ozymandias' escape, when there was that one shot of him and it was across the 3 panels of him like diving across the street to land to the other side. Like, it was just so stylish,
Yeah.
And if that's the like caliber of art that we can expect for the next, what is it, 9 issues? Yeah, okay, I'm bad at math. I know how many issues there are.
It's 9. Yeah, it's 9.
I have to say, I guess it'll be worth the wait, because I definitely agree with you, Marco. That was something that really stood out to me, this issue, especially because the story was so slow.
Yeah.
That I feel like the art did a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah, and I think, this is equal parts Johns and Frank, and that's what's so great about this and their dynamic, is that you can tell with every issue that without either piece, the puzzle doesn't work.
Yeah, because this script is strong, even though like the issue was slow in the overall narrative. Like, there's a lot of really good moments in it, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. The mime and marionette sequence is especially interesting because it answers one of the questions that people have had for like the first couple of issues, which is, what the hell is going on with the mime? Is he just crazy?
Yeah.
What's the deal? Turns out he really does have weapons.
Yeah. It's cool.
I was going to say, definitely crazy, but has weapons.
Right.
My question was, so do you guys think that, are these like just tech, or does he have powers? Like, is he manifesting these weapons with powers, or is he just kitted out with invisible weapons that he got somewhere?
Definitely invisible weapons.
Yeah.
You think?
Yeah.
That was what I was thinking too, because Marionette also used them.
I don't think so. She had it seemed like a
wire.
razor cord.
Razor thin.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't a gun, but it was still invisible, right? Like,
No. It was. You can see just it's a very thin cord.
Okay, because I got the impression that was the outline of an invisible weapon, because the same thing happened when he fired the gun and when he threw the knife.
But hers was like a razor thin wire that, in theory, you wouldn't be able to see anyway.
Okay. All right,
like razor sharp, like fishing line or something.
That's a cool ass weapon.
She like ripped up a dude, man.
When she just like ripped that, like just cut that dude's hand off, and
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh, you have really pretty eyes." It was like, what a panel, man. Awesome.
Really, really, really good stuff, and great dialogue, I thought, from Johns as well. This is like, obviously they're kind of like the Watchmen universe's allegory for Joker and Harley Quinn, but they feel a lot more interesting in a weird way, I guess, because we were exposed so much.
Totally agree.
To Joker and Harley. This dynamic is very
It's fresh,
reminiscent, but fresh at the same time.
Yeah, and it's like, the thing I like about it is like, this to me feels like the relationship that all of the edgelords you see talk about, how like they have Harley Quinn and Joker relationship goals. It's like, I think this is like what you're projecting onto their actually fucked up and abusive relationship, where it's like, seems like they're actually like, they care about each other and they're like worried about their child, and like they seem like people, not like monsters. And not that Harley Quinn is necessarily a monster, but the Joker sure fucking is.
Okay, these two are monsters. They're definitely monsters. It's just that they care about each other and their child, because they murder monstrously in this issue.
They do hack up a lot of people.
So another major development here that I think is actually going to play out huge over the course of the next year, because Doomsday Clock takes place about a year ahead of the current DC timeline. So here they're dealing with this question of like, why are there so many American superheroes and superpowered people, and that whole conspiracy theory. And it's really interesting how that plays into the story, because if you think about it, Superman is like this paragon of good and virtue, and now his origin is being called into question. Is he a fake, right? And it just kind of like brings out the cynicism that exists in everyone. And the cynicism in a lot of ways is what Watchmen was kind of known for. And DC is supposed to be the direct allegory to that. So if the end of the Watchmen universe is the result of cynicism, right? Then where is the DC universe going, right? We see the protests, we see the request for Batman to take off his mask and all that stuff. Are they on the verge? Is Lex Luthor the Ozymandias of the Watchmen universe, or of the DC universe in that sense? Like, are they on the road to that?
I mean, I feel like they're trying to draw parallels between them, right? Like the last issue, there was a very concerted effort to point out their similarities and differences to us as readers. So I think that's probably a pretty good guess. Did anyone else think it was a little weird that like the intro to the whole superhuman thing was they were like calling for Batman to take his mask off when he's like not a superhuman? Like, I thought that was a little strange. Like, I get
people don't know that.
That's fair, I guess.
Like the general myth around Batman is that he's just as much superhuman as Superman or Wonder Woman.
That makes sense.
There's also some missing context here that you only know if you're reading current Justice League. In that book, there's a storyline playing out where basically there's an imposter Batman. And he's doing some things that are really messed up and murdering, and people are thinking that it's the real Batman that's doing that, and they want his head. And in the book, people are asking the question of, well, how am I supposed to know that there's not more than one Batman? Or how are we supposed to take his word when we don't even know who he is? And so that actually is, I'm sure that this is deliberate, that these stories are playing out at the same time, even though Doomsday Clock takes place a year in advance. So you can see how after this Justice League story plays out and over time, they would get to the point where this is the result. But if you don't read the Justice League book, then you don't know that. So that's kind of like a misstep by DC. But I also like the fact that you don't necessarily have to have that context to read Doomsday Clock.
Well, yeah, because it wasn't like I read that and I was like, oh, this makes no fucking sense, and it totally took me out of it. Like, Batman's a part of the superhero community, like, obviously. It was just, I guess, like, that specifically, I guess, as someone who didn't have that context, I was kind of like, that's kind of weird, I guess. You know? Like, it definitely made me question it, but it wasn't, like, some glaring flaw in my mind by any means.
So, let's talk about the show, or the movie, rather, that gets presented.
That
here.
was a really fun plot device, I thought.
It's kind of like the Black Freighter, right? For this story,
it's the counterpoint.
And I really like that they introduced it here. So basically, the characters are watching a movie called The Adjournment. There's a lot of history to this. Nathaniel Dusk is an actual comic book character in real life in our world. And there were some stories told about him, but he kind of got disregarded. He gets brought back here in Doomsday Clock as a movie, sort of like not like a James Bond, but I can't think of a great example. But he's a character.
It's like those old fucking, like gumshoe spy, private investigator, smoking a cigarette, black and white kind of, like Jessica Jones, what that's based on.
Essentially. But what's really interesting about this, and it seems like it's going to be like a Black Freighter-esque type thing, is that the actor who plays Nathaniel Dusk is named Carver Coleman, and he gets murdered. And there's some really interesting stuff going on there, because I don't know if you guys caught this, but they say that the only thing that was missing off his body, they say this in the book, was his watch.
Yeah.
And that there are some lies he's been telling about his origin, how his family owns a farm and all these different things, and it turns out that they're not true. And so I'm kind of wondering, how does this story relate to Dr. Manhattan? Because obviously no Watchmen fan is going to read that and not realize the watch thing.
Yeah, and also they wouldn't have given it this much screen time and then the 3 pages of backup material that you're supposed to pick through to get these little details if there wasn't. We're obviously getting threads here.
I wonder if it's the body that, you know, back to the point about the comedian. I wonder if it's, and this is obviously a long shot speculation, but I wonder if it's the body that they bury in Watchmen in place of the comedian.
Does he look enough? Oh no, they said his face was beaten beyond recognition, even by his closest friends. That's the thing they said. You might be onto something there, Cale.
And even,
I don't know.
Yeah.
That doesn't
long shot speculation, but
there's something there.
Yeah,
there's something there.
I also took that back matter as sort of a the book that Hollis Mason writes in Watchmen, detailing sort of their his early career and the forming of the Minutemen and all that. They point out Ted Grant, who's the Wildcat, John Law, and Libby Lawrence. Those are all Golden Age superheroes. John Law, I believe, is Johnny Quick. Was he?
He was like the spirit predecessor.
Because he was divorced from Libby Lawrence, who's the original Liberty Bell.
I don't know. I might be thinking of someone else.
No, you're absolutely onto something, Cale. I was reading about this a little earlier. I don't remember all the exact details, but there's a lot of like deep comic book references and stuff like that. And speaking to your point about Hollis Mason, consider the way that this guy was murdered. Mm-hmm. Coleman was beaten with what they won't say is an Oscar, but it is. And the same way that Mason was beaten with one of his trophies, right?
Yeah, his Night Owl trophies or whatever, yeah.
Yeah,
Cale. John Law is a Will Eisner creation. His partnership was with Lady Luck back in the day.
So the only other thing I wanted to point out was that Coleman had a secret room. They say in the back matter, he had a secret room that was filled with clocks on display and different things like that. So there's a lot going on here, and I think that subsequent issues will absolutely address it. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about is really kind of the centerpiece of this issue, which is the relationship between Batman and Rorschach.
I was going to say, so we found out that Rorschach is mostly a nobody, right?
Not necessarily. We know that he was a cab driver because he's seen in a cab. We see him in a cab when the events of Watchmen take place.
Was it a cab? I missed that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's that. I'm questioning how he survived. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but we'll see.
Especially if he was right in front of the thing like the comic tells us he was.
Right.
Yeah, it looks like he's like, maybe 10 blocks away. Like it looks like he's very close.
We see him wake up. It could have been a dream. Maybe he wasn't actually driving his cab when it took place. But why would you see yourself as a cab driver if you weren't?
I would assume he was a cab driver. Whether or not he was actually at the blast zone, like that could be, like you said, kind of like a nightmare scenario. If he saw the footage of it, he's putting those two memories together in the dream kind of thing, Yeah,
that was my takeaway. And then the other thing is that he mentions that his family died on that day. So that's another hint. He was absolutely, he had family. Whether that was he was the son of somebody relevant or maybe he wasn't relevant at all. We don't know.
He also says in the scene, he's like, I got to get home to mom and dad. Right. So like when he said that his family was killed, I thought that would mean like wife and kids, but I guess maybe it's his parents that he's talking about.
Which again, I'm thinking he's the son of I believe his name is Dr. Long from Watchmen.
Rorschach
still holding on to that.
Right. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I was wondering about what Cale had said, right? Like, is he just a nobody? But then, like, why did he take up the Rorschach mantle? Like, where did he get the journal? Like, there's a lot of questions as to why he would go this route if he's not connected to the original, like, tree of people, as it were, somehow. you know, if he doesn't have some personal connection. But not necessarily, but I feel like there is a connection there to someone from the original book.
Sure. And Watchmen is about legacies in a lot of ways. I could see that being, you know, a connection. The one panel or sequence of panels that stuck out to me was when he's scrubbing himself.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Trying to clean himself.
That
And
was
obviously
so
he
cool.
feels very, very guilty about what he has involved himself in here with Ozzy. And he scrubs himself so hard that he starts bleeding from the scalp. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was a really intense moment.
So I looked back at where the guy was, the Rorschach. He's in front of it. He's behind a taxi. So we see taxi in front, but I don't think he's actually in a taxi.
Huh.
Are you sure?
Yeah, if you go over to the page, there's a taxi in front of him, but
There's a thing hanging from a rearview mirror and everything. Like, he's in a car.
Yeah, he's in a car, but not a cab. He's not driving a cab.
You're definitely right. There's a taxi in front of him. So we'll see how that we'll see how that all plays out. So then, obviously, we've got the relationship between Batman and Rorschach, where we see Batman kind of reading the journal, which was really cool. Seems to be aligned with Rorschach, and they're ready to go find Dr. Manhattan. Batman has his machine that can locate Dr. Manhattan, and he says he's in Arkham. So they go to Arkham, and they're walking through Arkham, and they go into a cell, and Batman locks him in.
This is my favorite part. This is my favorite
was
part.
So cruel, but like, yeah, it was such a good moment. I was just like, oh no. Like,
why does Batman do that?
Because he's a nutter.
Yeah, I mean, I think he must just think he's insane. You know, like, I think he definitely gets the impression that he's just like a crazy homeless man who has inklings of being a superhero who's involved in this big conspiracy. You know, like, that there's this, you know, because, like, think about it, right? Like, I totally get why, from Batman's perspective, like, he would read this journal and, like, not take it at face value.
that's what I thought. But then he's Batman. He's part of the Justice League. Like,
but also, like, this journal is an account of things that didn't happen in
that
his
too.
universe.
Right.
Like, it's this alternate history, you know, and like,
so he might as well have handed Batman a book about Twilight. We gotta go get Bella away from these vampires.
And like, I totally get that argument of like, well, he's Batman. Batman deals with interdimensional stuff all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, sure, but he doesn't know this guy from Adam, and he just shows up at the Batcave, which I guess maybe is a clue that he's, you know, somewhat legit because he figured it out and he knew who he was. But even so, that means, okay, maybe this crazy guy's a good detective. That doesn't mean his alternate history story is real and that, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a far-fetched tale. And the guy smells while he's looking for it. He indicates that he has a fork pocket that Batman's like there's literally a cut to him just being like, what? So, like, I think he very much just gets the impression that he's totally nuts.
And it's not that hard to break into the Batcave. Like, Ra's al Ghul does it every Tuesday. Like,
but he's a genius.
The Flash does it every Wednesday. Like, big deal.
The Flash is a god. Flash can go through walls.
He's also a genius. He's a scientist.
Yeah. I think that that Batman's actions here are out of character. I really do. I think that it doesn't make sense when you consider the Button, because the Button miniseries clearly establishes that Batman knows that something is happening, and so does the Flash, and Batman was investigating it. So the fact that somebody comes around with information about an alternate reality when the Button is literally all about the Batman going to an alternate reality and learning things that he's not supposed to know while chasing down a lead that clearly has something to do with something from an alternate reality doesn't add up for me. It just doesn't make sense.
I don't think it's super out of character for him to take that information and leave the person out of it, and, you know, either put them at arm's length or get them out of harm's way or just shut them out completely.
I think that what you're saying right there sounds right. It's possible that maybe he thinks that this guy's out of his league, out of his depth. But why lock him up in Arkham?
The fork pocket.
He says you belong in here. Batman belongs in there just as much as Rorschach does in that case.
But Batman's rich, Sean. He doesn't care. He has a house and a butler to take care of him. It's okay if he's crazy. Batman's a hypocrite.
He can afford bail.
I just think this was hypocritical, and I'm more inclined to believe that Batman would have tried to glean every bit of information that he could have than just lock the guy up.
I agree.
There's too much at stake.
I think that makes sense, especially when you point out it with the context of the button, right? Like I'd forgotten about the button because I only read the one issue that you shared with me when we went to the comic book store together in the middle of that series, So that's another thing where with that context, I guess I can see why you would feel that way for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, overall, my feelings are that this was a solid issue. Definitely feeling the slow burn here. This is probably what people who read Watchmen when it was coming out felt like. It's gonna hurt when it goes by monthly, but if the quality will always be this good visually and storytelling wise overall, then I'm willing to wait. I've waited for worse series than this, so this is a monumental thing, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, well, I would rather it take those 2 months because when it's all said and done and it's in one collection, we won't care how long it took. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if it's a classic. If it's a bona fide classic like Watchmen is, it won't matter. We'll forget that it went by monthly. We'll remember that it was great.
Can I tell you guys what a shitty comics fan I am?
Sure.
I forgot that what's the comedian's name? Eddie Blake?
Yeah.
I forgot that the comedian dies. So before I read this issue,
it's like the beginning of the book.
Right. But so it's been a while since I've read it, right? But
it's fair.
He dies in the beginning of the book, and then that sets off the whole thing, right? But there's so much packed in Watchmen, and you see him so many other times in his costumes and raping. I just when I saw something, it must have been a Polygon or something that was like, yeah, the comedian comes back from the dead, and I was like, the comedian died?
Fucking fake ass comics boy over here.
And then I had to really think about it, and I was like, oh yeah.
Jess, does the comedian die?
Jess is Cale's girlfriend for the uninitiated.
Oh, sorry. Because it's funnier with context.
See, much like Doomsday Clock itself, if you've read the extended literature, if you're caught up on the Pals League, you would know.
The Pals League.
Much like Watchmen, it's funnier with context.
All right, so that's going to do it for our conversation on Doomsday Clock, and definitely let us know what you're thinking about the third issue, and let us know what your theories are. What is going on with Rorschach? Who is Reggie related to? Is he a cab driver or not? Keep us posted on all your thoughts. And enjoy the rest of the show. I know I'm not on it, which makes it worse, but have a good time with this one, kids.
Don't worry, you guys. I got this. I'll hold down the fort.
Here's looking at you, Marco.